Hello, welcome to the Rewind YouTube channel. My name is Dasha and I'm the Partnerships Manager here at Rewind. Through our agency partner program, we have a unique opportunity to connect with a lot of interesting people who have one thing in common. They build beautiful e-commerce experiences. This mini-series is meant to share these agencies' stories and experiences with you. Let's get started. Today, I have the pleasure to be sitting down with Matt King, the Manager Director at Half Helix, an e-commerce agency with offices in New York City, Los Angeles, Mexico City, and Toronto. Matt has had a really impressive career journey and has worked with some really interesting brands at Half Helix. So I'm really excited for you, Matt, to be telling us about those today. To get started, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the world of e-commerce?
Sure, yeah. Well, first off, Dasha, thanks for having me. Um, my world of e-commerce, my journey rather, was just was a little bit of a quirky one. I happened to be in Ottawa. That's where I'm from, and also where a company is from, which we know of as Shopify. And so, I traveled for a year, I went to the university, came back, and my friend told me about this company called Shopify that, no one really knew of at the time. It was 2012. And I applied as a marketer, and they said, you don't have any marketing experience, but how about a guru job? And so I said, okay, sure, I'll do a guru job. And so I did customer support for Shopify for about a year, and then moved on to the partnerships team with Shopify and at the headquarters, and eventually moving into the Plus partnerships team. I was there for 5 years total.
Wow.
At Shopify. Yeah, it was a really great experience. I saw the company go public. I saw the past numerous milestones in terms of number of merchants and MRR and all those core metrics to any good software company.
Mm-hmm.
And then left when it was time for me to do the next thing, which was kind of have my ownership stake in something and be a part of something that I felt like I had a little bit more control over. So I left to join Half Helix, which is a digital agency kind of focused on Shopify, which is actually how I met Half Helix. I managed the partner relationship between Shopify and Half Helix, so I knew the ecosystem, the agency network, and I respected the work that Half Helix had done. So I approached my now business partner Peter Humphrey and asked him if he'd have me on, and he said yes, and the rest is history.
That's awesome. So you were able to use the experience that you gained at Shopify to then work with merchants again.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, I mean, I like Shopify really does a great job of bringing people into the industry and the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
And I think 5 years is a good amount of time to be anywhere. And
Yeah.
so I don't think they're too upset like that I left. And if I'm leaving Shopify to work for a partner,
Mm-hmm.
and still prop up the industry of e-commerce, I think it's
Right.
the best case scenario. It's a win-win for everybody.
Of course. Yeah, you're still contributing to the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about Half Helix. So who do you work with most often? What kind of clients are you guys working with? And what services are you providing?
Sure. Yeah, we're a digital agency growing, guiding the next generation of e-commerce companies. That's what we say, and we tend to work. I mean, primarily based in New York and Toronto. That's where most of our employees are. So by nature of New York, and that's our headquarters, we work with a lot of fashion brands, specifically fashion brands who kind of have an element of I always like to say we do the funky stuff on Shopify, where Shopify is a platform and it's easy to use, and that's great. But as with any platform, there's some limitations, hard limitations, some soft limitations, and we kind of specialize in finding creative ways to work within the parameters of the platform for merchants that maybe have a little more complexity than what the platform kind of was intended for, so to
Right.
speak. So we'll help explain the functionality of Shopify through custom apps, through integration work, and through designing and building the actual websites, the front end web experience as well.
Right. So you talk about being funky. What is the funkiest build do you think that you worked with, or what's your favorite project to date?
Ooh, wow, that's a good question. Hmm. You know what? I would say to date, live and launched. One that I'm really proud of is Lenox. So Lenox, proud of for a couple reasons. One, it's kind of the typical scenario of a company who's old. And I mean, Lenox is a 150-year-old company. They're in every home, Bed Bath and Beyond, at home sense in North America.
Yep.
They're a company that all of our grandparents are fond of.
Mm-hmm.
And so they thought, oh, we need to be on some old technology, and we need to pay. They were on Oracle Commerce Cloud before, and my business partner and I went to meet them in their headquarters outside of Philadelphia, and they go, hey, there's just the two of you, and you both have laptops. And we go, yeah. He goes, we're used to seeing 10 people in suits walk into our office to talk about our website.
All right.
So there was a really cultural adjustment period where they thought like the website required suits and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to maintain. And it was a bit of an eye-opening experience for them, kind of showing them Shopify and showing them the reasons being. And that website ended up being interesting for a couple of reasons, but one of the main ones, if you go to Lenox.com, you'll see there's 3 different brands under the Lenox umbrella: Lenox, Dansk, and Reed and Barton, and all fairly well-known kitchenware brands. And we created a multi-tier experience, so you can kind of swap between stores at the top of the site and have a shared cart experience. So you can check out from Dansk, Reed and Barton, and Lenox all through one checkout, even though the stores are independent of another.
That's brilliant. And how when you walked in without a suit and just your laptop, how were you able to convince them that e-commerce can be done without the suit and without the big team? What were you able to do?
Definitely required some education, and they required a leap of faith from their side. I think they need to have on the brand side, on the retailers, they need to have someone who's willing to say, hey, we stand for the future, and someone who's looking forward and looking at what the next iteration of e-commerce is going to be. Shout out to Ravi, who's the CTO at Lenox, and he really kind of took a leap of faith by choosing us and choosing Shopify, and that's what it requires. It comes down to. It's like it seems like it might be the more risky endeavor.
Right.
We seem culturally different than what they're used to. But I think through explanation and just kind of like demoing Shopify and just having like long, hard conversations about like, but what if this happens? What if this happens? And we're able to portray that. And sometimes that means as well, it's probably not going to be 100% of the functionality that you used to have. And we always have this tough conversation with our clients as well, where we're like, you used to be on a platform where anything was possible. Now you're on a platform where specific things are possible. Shopify dictates the way that it should happen in a lot of cases. So, you're going to leave behind some functionality, but what you're going to make up for in operational efficiencies and ease of use and, less team members and less cost, it's going to it's going to be better than what you had before.
Gotcha. What would you say is your favorite part about working at Half Helix and just being in that e-commerce ecosystem?
A lot of things. I mean, I like so Half Helix. I mean, we're very chill, as a team. It's a very laid back working environment, and everyone. We're a small team. We're 25, 30 people, and actually 31 or so. But we really it's just kind of grown organically through friends and say like, oh, we should hire this person, and this guy's I know smarts, and so it's just really tight knit team and people who are very intelligent and work hard and share philosophical values, and so I like the team setting and the team environment and the type of personalities we have on the team. That's for me, it's really fun. And the challenges, the technical challenges that we have running complex projects and running 3 or 4 or 5 of them at the same time with different brands who all have high stakes, well-known brands. And I have to check my contracts. I don't know who I can name right now, but we're working with some pretty decent sized brands, some household names, so to speak. And so, being able to, we're at the size now where we have really distinct product teams that are focusing on different projects and having an overview, having the 1,000-foot view of all of those and seeing those go simultaneously and go well, knock on wood. That's really exciting to me. And I think it's a really hard thing to do as an agency as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great segue into my next question, which is what would you recommend to a small agency that's just getting started? What sort of tips would you give a smaller agency to succeed?
Yeah, good question. I think it's really important to stay focused as an agency, meaning figure out what you're good at or what you want to be doing lots of, and stick to it. You know, the clients, the merchants, they have their own objectives and opinions and things that they need done. So they're going to try and get you to do those, because they need them done.
Mm-hmm.
And that means saying no. Be ready to say no to people who are willing to pay you. It seems counterintuitive, but in our business and what we have realized is like when we say no, it ends up leading to something better than the thing we were going to compromise and do. So stay focused, understand what you actually want to be doing and what you're good at doing, and continue down that path, and don't get pulled in a different direction that's not your core competency.
Right. Don't spread yourself too thin.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Trying to please everyone. Gotcha. What would you say has been a really memorable experience working in the agency space? So either a disaster that you'll never forget and you didn't see coming, or a success that likewise you didn't see coming, but just blew you away.
Sure. Yeah, I think the pandemic, like when it hit, it was a really challenging time for our business. I think in March, really, I was actually at eTail West, which is a conference in Palm Springs, e-commerce conference, and no one was talking about it. I mean, it was everyone in e-commerce was there, and kind of it wasn't even a topic. And then got back to eTail West, and all of a sudden it was okay, everything's shutting down. Yeah. And it really happened very quickly in March. And from what we saw a freeze. All of our clients who had retainers and who were paying us to make updates or changes, and they all either churned entirely or really reduced their number of hours. And so we were kind of sitting there with like some extra capacity and worried about like are we going to be able to keep our team, and is everything is the ship going to steer in the same way that we're going to, even though a month earlier we were thinking like, oh, we're going to beat our target within 6 months, and so within 30 days, the realness of the situation really hit home, and what that meant for our business, and also health and our grandparents, and so it was an emotional time on a lot of different fronts all at once. And then, so we kind of persevered, and we made a concerted effort. We didn't lay anyone off, and like I said, we have a tight team, and that was a choice, not laying anyone off, because we did see a drop in our revenue, noticeable, and we thought, okay, we're going to take a leap of faith here and see what happens. In fact, we actually hired someone as a technical lead, and when we really couldn't afford to hire anyone, but some good talent became available. Another agency in Toronto laid off a bunch of developers, and we go, oh man, like we can't miss this opportunity. It's too interesting. Developers are so hard to come by. So
relatable.
Exactly. So we went for it, and then we've seen, if there was the freeze in March, the icebergs came, the money froze, the thaw happened in April, and continued to happen through May. So, we've noticed that the brands and retailers started making up for lost time, started considering how important it was to go online for the first time. There are big retailers who you go to their website, you try and buy, a bottle of perfume, and it'll say, okay, you go to the Nordstrom website, or it'll point them to different places, and you go, no, you got to take that revenue. You have to be selling on your own. Yeah. So we've had a lot of those conversations over the last month, and we've turned what was really, really a challenging, scary time into something that seems really positive. And now we feel like we are back on track to hit our numbers this year, not in 6 months, but in 12 months. So it's going to be a regular year, hopefully. Again, knock on wood.
Knock on wood. That's awesome. That's really great to hear. I'm really happy for your whole team. As we do see more merchants move online, and I think I can echo that on behalf of all of Rewind, we've seen so many people switch to online. What sort of advice would you give to merchants trying to succeed? So you build your website, you put all your products there, and then how do you actually get people to land on your website? What sort of advice would you give those merchants that are just starting out?
That's a good question. So in terms of traffic to their website, I would say that's not exactly, I'm not going to claim to be an expert in marketing and sending traffic to a website.
Right.
We tend to be, we only offer design and development. So we don't actually, we offer what's on the screen. And so that's really kind of what we focused on. So I think instead of that, like what's important, especially for early stage merchants where they've done all this work, through getting a social media following or, doing ads on Google or whatever it is to get traffic to their website. Well, you want to convert the most amount of customers or traffic to paying customers. And
Absolutely.
how do you do that? And I think one thing that's really interesting, which people should really do, is consider their demographic, because different demographics interact with the web differently. And it's just the fact. And I think that not enough people, owner founders, especially in small e-commerce stores, might consider themselves to be their own customer, even if that's not the case. If you make candles and those candles are, smell like home, then maybe you aren't your own customer for those candles. I don't know if that's an example.
Yeah.
You really need to consider what your demographic might be looking for. For example, millennial demographics tend to scroll. We're used to Instagram, and we can scroll for days, for better or for worse. In fact, only for worse. And Zuckerberg has messed all of us up, but that's just the truth. So having a homepage, we like to put a lot of stuff on a homepage. Don't be afraid. There used to be this trope 3 or 4 years ago in web design of like, hey, put everything above the fold, make sure it's all clickable. You know exactly what's on the page right away. Well, that's not the case anymore. Now consumers are willing to scroll. They're willing to look through the homepage and scroll for 2-3 minutes to find what they're looking for. So that's something to consider for a younger demo for sales. And then if it's skewing 50 plus in the demo, then we talk about above the fold. We talk about really merchandising the top navigation. We really want to give people multiple paths to lead to your product. Even having a really robust search tool, having a search bar and placing it in a really prominent position on your homepage with suggestive search, using a third-party app, that can really do a lot for conversions. And we tend to recommend that if anyone's looking in that over 50 segment.
That's awesome. Thank you. And speaking of apps, what are some of the top apps that you recommend to merchants?
Good question. So we are partners with a couple different apps. I mean, when it comes to subscription payments, we like using Recharge, and we think that they have the most robust tool. They just released a new theme editor, which is really nice. So a way to, or I think it's called the theme editor. I think it is. Yeah. So where we can now build in different functionality for people's e-commerce stores and a little more ease of use than it used to be, which is awesome. And for search, I mentioned we like using Boost Commerce as kind of like our baseline offering. We tend to have a couple different apps that we go to for in each price segment, depending on the merchant. There's like the enterprise version, there's the mid-range version, and Boost Commerce would be our mid-range version. It's like got 80% of the functionality without the big price tag. And they're a small team in Vietnam, and we're really tight with them. We have an open Slack channel with the Boost Commerce team.
Nice.
We put them on, I think, 65% of our projects. But that being said, if someone needs a little more robust search and really wants to focus on it, we've used things like Algolia, but right now we're happy with, and a couple other search tools. And reviews, we like Okendo, I like Junip, Yapo are also really great. And then, of course, Rewind, an important step for any merchant where, you need to back up your stuff. We've seen disasters happen. So it's now something that we recommend for every project. It's in our scoping document. We go, hey, do you need to back up your website? Because if so, we should use Rewind.
Yeah.
And give people the option, or at least put it on their radar that like this is something you should consider. You might not have right now, but think about it.
Right. What has been the worst disaster you've seen related to data loss?
Good question. So I would say it would be through an overwrite through, an ERP integration that we've made before. So, we tend to integrate with a variety of ERPs. I can't think of a specific merchant, but nor should I probably say the name, but building a custom middleware for an ERP integration and then having that, have the kind of something goes wrong either on the manual side, someone inputs the wrong information and kind of takes down a product from the website, or the integration breaks in some kind of capacity, and therefore the wrong data has been flowed through and overrides the website. So yes, there's a number of ways, but I have to talk to my project team to get you a specific example.
Thank you. Thanks so much for coming on. It's been great to hear more about and learn more about your story. Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find Half Helix on Instagram at Half Helix. You can find me actually macking something. Macking on Instagram and Twitter. Macking as well. MACKING, and yeah, that's it.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up below and follow our YouTube channel for more videos like this.